Hey, this is Mariela from The Functional Company. Let's get right into the subject of fats. Let's get our fats straight. So there's gonna be a few episodes, I'm gonna break it down. And in this episode, I'm gonna tell you the story of how we came to believe that fats were bad for us. If you watched the last episode, you listened to the story of Dr. Weston A. Price and how important his research was in seeing that fat is actually something very valuable for the diet and the development of our bodies and the maintaining of our health long term. And so if you know that that made sense to you, then now the next question is like, well, why do we think fat is bad? Why do we think that it's gonna give us a heart disease? Like why did we think it was gonna make us fat? Like where did we come up with this? So this story involves this guy, his name is Dr. Ansel Keys. And back in the 50s, he came up with a theory that's called the diet heart hypothesis. And so basically what that stated was that the more saturated fat that you ate, that you would have a higher incidence or risk of having heart disease. And it was based mainly on a 7-country study where he plotted 7 different countries and noted that the more saturated fat they ate, the higher the incidence of death by heart disease or heart attacks. And so it was a beautifully plotted chart or graph, right? Where he had these 7 countries. It was definitely like the more fat you ate, the higher incidence of death by heart attack or heart disease. And so when you see that study, you're just like, oh my gosh, obviously. However, the original study was a 22-country study. And when you actually plot all of those, the graph doesn't chart as pretty. So basically what you see there is that there were some countries that ate higher amounts of fat, saturated fat, and had a low incidence of heart disease or death by heart attack. And then there were other countries that ate a lower amount of fat and had a higher incidence of heart attacks or death by heart disease, right? And so when you see those numbers and you see all the 22 countries, suddenly it doesn't add up. It's not the same picture. Nevertheless, this was what was pushed forward on us as a group, and the health policy at the time became like basically saturated fat causes heart disease and we should avoid it. We should be on a low-fat diet, which basically propelled us into this whole, just like that basic policy that I just mentioned. It was a higher carbohydrate diet, low fat diet. But nowadays, we have a very high incidence of heart disease, high incidence of diabetes, problems of chronic disease, and we're more tired and sicker than ever, right? So obviously something's not adding up here. So I just want to share that piece of information. There were a few other studies that were also not interpreted correctly or presented completely. You can find more information. These are the things I would suggest you look into. There's a book that's called Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. What's amazing about Gary Taubes is that he actually has a group of people that actually go through all of the research of the past 100 years regarding, heart disease and all of this stuff. And he really puts tons of references in there and explains to you how we got to believe the things that we did about fat, for example, right? So that one's called Good Calories, Bad Calories. I highly recommend it if you really want to dig into and you're just like, wow, this is interesting, but I want more information. That's definitely one book I would recommend. If you want a video form, there's a fantastic video on YouTube you could find that's called The Oiling of America, and it's delivered by Sally Fallon Morell. And so she's fantastic, and she also gives you an entire history of what happened and how we got to believe that, fat was bad for us. Basically, it was going to kill us. These are the main resources I would say. There's also a breakdown by Denise Minger. You can look her up you can Google her, and she does a fantastic job of actually looking through a lot of the research. And I just love her tone because she's very well educated, very intelligent. But to me, she's very objective in a lot of ways. She's not so hardcore on one side that she really hates another side. And it's you can really kind of feel that she understands how people can come to believe certain things, and she's very funny as well. So I highly recommend her, very intelligent woman, and all of the research that she's done. So you don't have to go dig into the research yourself, but all of the people who research the research, and then also they provide you with references in case you want to dig into it yourself. But right now I just want to mention this particular story about Ansel Keys and how we got to believe that fat was going to basically give us heart attacks and make us fat. But nowadays we know the ketogenic diet exists, and it's fantastic for losing weight. It's a high fat diet, We know that our brain is largely composed of fat. We know that all of our cell membranes require fat in order to function. We know that our nerves are wrapped in myelin sheaths, which are also composed of fat. Our heart runs on fat for fuel. I mean, there's a lot more to the story than meets the eye, and at least in terms of what we've been told by the mainstream media regarding fat. So it's important for you to get more information on this. And right now, I just kind of want to touch on this so you have some more resources. They go beyond the scope of this particular episode, but hopefully this has been helpful for you. And then share this information with somebody that you think could benefit or might be confused about this subject and is actually wondering, how to put it all together. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the flip side.